Rome, 59 AD. Night fell over the Bay of Baiae. It was that warm, suffocating evening when the Tyrrhenian Sea lay motionless, like a mirror reflecting the stars. And Agrippina had just finished dining with her son. Nero was unusually affectionate. He filled her cup, laughed at her jokes, escorted her to the ship that was to take her home. He even embraced her longer than usual in farewell. The ship set sail. A few minutes later, the wooden partitions in the hold suddenly collapsed inward. The structure had been designed so that the vessel would sink. But Agrippina the Younger knew how to swim. She reached the shore by swimming. The messenger she sent to her son with the news of her miraculous survival was immediately arrested. Nero declared that his mother had sent him with a dagger with the intention of killing the emperor. By morning, 3 men with swords appeared at Agrippina's villa. According to the testimony of Tacitus, recorded in the annals, her last words to the assassins were, "Strike the womb," the place that had carried Nero. But this story does not begin with the murder. It begins 30 years earlier with a little girl who understood too early that for a woman there was only one way not to become a victim. Agrippina Julia was born in the year 15 AD in Germany in a military camp on the Rhine. Her father was Germanicus, Rome's most beloved general, the nephew of Tiberius, a man destined for the throne. Her mother, Agrippina the Elder, was the granddaughter of Augustus, a woman of the same unbreakable will who passed both her name and her fate to her daughter. When little Agrippina was 4 years old, she travelled with her father among the Rhine garrisons. The soldiers adored her, the little girl in children's sandals resembling army colleague. They nicknamed her Caligula. The nickname stuck to her younger brother, who later became emperor himself. Germanicus died in 19 AD in Syria, supposedly poisoned on the orders of Tiberius. Agrippina was 4 years old. Her mother spent the following years in open confrontation with the emperor, seeking justice for her children and for her husband's memory. For this, Tiberius exiled Agrippina the Elder to the island of Pandateria, where she died of starvation, possibly voluntary. As a child, Agrippina witnessed these events, which remained in her memory for a long time. At the age of 16, she was married to Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus, a man whom Suetonius described as a person without any deeds worthy of praise. Their union was arranged for political interests and was marked by coldness and hostility. In 37 AD, she gave birth to a son. She named him Lucius Domitius. Later history would know him by another name. When her brother Caligula came to power, Agrippina found herself at court, at the very heart of the empire. But Caligula was unpredictable. In 39 AD, he accused her of plotting against him and exiled her to the Pontine Islands, the same place where her mother had died. Her property was confiscated. Little Lucius was given to an aunt. Agrippina lived on the island for almost 3 years in poverty, selling her jewelry to survive. It was the second exile in her family. She remembered that too. Caligula was killed in 41 AD. With the support of the Praetorians, her uncle Claudius ascended the throne. Agrippina was returned to Rome, her property was restored, and her son was returned to her. And here, exactly here, historians note the moment when Agrippina stopped merely surviving and began to act. Her first husband had died in 40 AD during her exile. She married a second time to the wealthy Gaius Sallustius Pacinus Crispus. Tacitus and later sources hint that this marriage did not end in divorce. Crispus died, leaving her his fortune. There is no proof of poisoning, but contemporaries drew certain conclusions. By the year 40, Agrippina was a widow, wealthy, free, and intelligent. She was 33 years old. Claudius had just executed his third wife Messalina for treason and public scandal. The court was discussing who would take the place of empress. The freedman Pallas, one of Claudius's most influential advisors, promoted Agrippina's candidacy. There was one formal obstacle. Agrippina was Claudius's niece. Marriage between an uncle and niece was considered incest in Rome. The Senate changed the law. According to Tacitus, this happened after several senators organized requests to legalize such unions in the interest of the state. Historians believe this scenario was orchestrated by Agrippina herself through her network of connections at court. In 49 AD, she became the emperor's wife. What happened next, Roman historians describe with undisguised astonishment. Agrippina did not act like a decoration beside her husband. She acted like a co-ruler. Coins were minted with her profile, next to that of Claudius. At official ceremonies, she received foreign ambassadors. Germanic tribes sent a delegation to her, not to the emperor. A new colony on the Rhine, founded that same year, received her name. Colonia Agrippina, today known as Cologne, but her main project was her son. Lucius Domitius was 12 when his mother married Claudius. Claudius had his own son, Britannicus, roughly the same age. Over the next few years, Agrippina methodically worked to push Britannicus into the background. Claudius adopted Lucius, giving him the name Nero Claudius Caesar. Nero received the title Princeps of Youth. Nero reached adulthood first according to the official calendar. Nero married Claudius's daughter Octavia. Nero was presented to the army at every step. Nero, not Britannicus. Tacitus describes how Agrippina chose tutors for her son. It was she who invited Seneca to return from exile so that he could teach Nero rhetoric and philosophy. It was a brilliant move. Seneca gave the young prince intellectual polish and the public image of an enlightened ruler. She understood that the throne must not only be seized, but also held. And for that legitimacy was required. Legitimacy built on reputation. In 54 AD, Claudius died. The official version, stomach illness, mushrooms at dinner. Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassius Dio all directly point to poisoning, organized by Agrippina with the help of the famous poisoner Locusta. Claudius died at the right moment. Shortly before his death, he had reportedly begun to show interest in transferring power to Britannicus rather than Nero. Nero was 17 years old. The Praetorian Guard, commanded by Burrus, a man who owed his appointment to Agrippina, proclaimed him emperor even before Claudius's death had been officially announced. Nero's first words to the Praetorians, according to Tacitus, the best of mothers. He meant Agrippina, and in the first months of the reign it indeed seemed so. Coins depicted Nero and Agrippina face to face in equal position. The inscription on the coins initially mentioned the mother's name before the son's. Foreign ambassadors reported to their capitals that real power in Rome was concentrated in the hands of a woman. At official meetings of the Senate, Agrippina sometimes appeared behind a curtain, listening to discussions of state affairs. According to Tacitus, once she nearly appeared before Armenian envoys to share the platform with her son. Nero would have had to step down from the throne and meet her at the steps, turning the ceremony into a demonstration of joint rule. Seneca and Burrus stopped this at the last moment by finding a distraction. It was the first public sign of a break. Seneca and Burrus understood that dual power was unstable. They systematically worked to expand Nero's autonomy and reduce his mother's influence. The young emperor was growing up. He developed his own desires. The first of them was named Acte. Acte was a freedwoman, a former slave. Nero fell in love with her with the intensity with which 17-year-olds fall in love for the first time. Agrippina was furious. It was humiliation. It was a blow to the dynastic strategy. It was a threat to her control over her son. She forbade it. She threatened him. According to Tacitus, she once proposed that Nero meet her in her private chambers, an intention the chronicler describes with open disgust. Historians debate how literally to interpret this passage, but one thing is certain. Agrippina was ready to do anything to keep her son dependent. Nero turned away. Agrippina was removed from court. She lost the protection of the Praetorian Guard and her public honours. When she attempted to openly support Britannicus, the last weapon in her arsenal, Nero acted immediately. In February of 55 AD, during an official dinner, Britannicus suddenly collapsed in convulsions and died at the table. The guests recoiled in horror. Nero said it was simply an epileptic seizure and continued the meal. Tacitus writes that at that moment Agrippina understood that her creation had slipped out of control. The following years, she lived in growing isolation. Nero openly humiliated her, removing her honours and her allies from key positions. She tried to regain influence through complaints, threats, and hints that she might tell the Senate exactly how Nero had come to power. It was a dangerous game. In 59 AD, Nero decided the game was over. Historians have several sources describing the conspiracy against Agrippina, the most detailed being in Tacitus's annals. A courtier named Anicetus, commander of the fleet at Misenum, who personally hated Agrippina, proposed the plan with the ship. The ship was constructed with secret lead ballast and collapsing partitions. When triggered, the hold would flood and a heavy canopy would fall on the passengers. It was a complex mechanical trap, disguised as a festive excursion. Nero invited his mother to a festival of Minerva at Baiae. He was attentive, affectionate, respectful. After dinner, he held her hand, escorted her to the ship, embraced her, and watched the vessel depart. The ship sank. Agrippina